Well, a couple of weeks ago, we had Canton Mayor Bill Scherer in studio with us, and we were talking about the things that were happening in Columbus in regards to education and funding and proposed legislation. And that just has taken the community by storm. But I think it's good to get the perception and the view from the education side, and that's why in studio with us right now we have Plain Local School Superintendent Brent May. How are you, sir?
Good morning, Pam. How are you?
I'm doing great. Glad to have you with us. So, my goodness, I'll tell you, I think there's a lot to be learned, a lot for folks to realize what's happening, and I'm glad you're here because if we have this situation continue like this, what's going to happen to Plain Local schools and other schools?
Yeah, it's an interesting time. That's probably being the best way I can say it. I think there's so much going on in Columbus right now, and a lot of it is the narrative is very negative about public education, and I think it's not a good time. Like I said, I think it's at times can be embarrassing how public education is being perceived, but that's kind of where we're at. And in Plain Local, I will say this before I start. I think when for a community to be successful, all the schools have to be prosperous, and they have to be doing well. And for our city and our communities and our townships and whatever to move forward, we have to have strong schools, and that's all schools, public, private, whatever it may be. And right now, when you hear about public education, we went from a time in COVID where educators were perceived as, heroes. And in a very short turnaround now, the narrative of we're doing all these things that are not focused on education is wrong because we're not doing those things. But as far as Plain Local, the current budget proposal as it stands right now, today we're waiting on the Senate. Today, the Senate is supposed to release their version of the budget. So we'll see what that looks like. But for right now, for Plain, over the budget time, we will lose $4.2 million annually. Now, that starts in 2028. Okay, for the next 2 years, we would be flat. That's honest. But starting in 28, we would lose $4.2 million annually. So, $8.4 million over 2 years. I think everyone can be pretty clear on what's going to happen. That's going to affect our kids, and it's going to affect programming and critical services for our kids. And I just don't know, how we're going to make that up, and it would be pretty much impossible to do that.
Yeah, I mean, you put the onus on taxpayers, eventually at some point, but that's still a lot of money to bring in.
Yeah, I mean, we all know what has gone on with property taxes, so everyone's aware of that. But for Plain right now, we are one of the lowest cost per pupil in the state. I think we're 578 out of 607. So we are educating kids at a very low cost. And very thankful for that for our taxpayers, but the state percentage of how they're going to fund schools is going down. And so that $4.2 million that we lose is 90% of our guaranteed funding. That's basically what's happening. So it's going to stay flat, and then it's going to go down, and the state share is going to go down because the state believes with the property taxes that communities can pay more, so the local share is going to go up. So the responsibility is going to go back on the taxpayers, and what are people supposed to do? Yeah. And if you don't have strong schools, then your community is going to turn south. So I'm just not sure, and there's no inflationary method into the formula, so we can't get more money as inflation goes up. We are flat, and that's just the truth. And we all know from our own personal homes, how inflation has impacted us. So things have gone up. Our funding has stayed flat. It's going to go down by, $8.5 million in a few years. And we in Plain are going to go from almost 70% of that's going to be, our funding is going to be local and only 30% for the state. So we're going to be back on the ballot. We're going to have to be because there's no other way. And we haven't been on the ballot since 2009. So, 2009 was our last levy. And I'm not here to complain, Pam. I'm not. These are the facts. We will adjust, adapt, whatever we have to do.
And you have been, right?
Yeah.
I mean, you just keep adjusting and adjusting and adjusting.
Yeah, this year going into 25-26 year, we've reduced well over $1 million. And, as people retire, we're not replacing them. Now, we've kept the reductions away from programming for our kids, but there's only so much you can do. There's only so large classes you can have. And, we provide a service to our community. If Plain Local didn't have the schools, and we found this out during COVID, and we see this now. I mean, I was at our high school this morning. Our high school opens at 6:30, and we have Y Camp there, every day from 6:30 to 6 p.m. at night. And, so we have a lot of services, and I can get into that, what's going to happen. But I just, it's unfortunate where we're at. And our world right now is so divisive, and we just need to be able to come together and figure this out, because this is not good for our kids. And, I go around and I attend a lot of meetings and chambers and all those meetings, and I hear workforce development, and that's great. I agree with that. But if you don't have strong schools, then how are you going to have a workforce? Yeah. And I'm just not sure how we're going to do that. So, it's a bizarre time. I've never seen it in 30 years.
What is the goal in Columbus? I mean, what are they saying their goal is? Or
oh boy,
is it clear cut? Is it? Yeah, I don't know.
I can't. Personally, my opinion is, I think sooner than later we'll have two classes of schools. We'll have those who have and the have-nots, and I really believe that's where we're heading. Now, I don't think anybody will come out and say that, because that wouldn't be good politically for them. But when we look at what's happening with vouchers and private schools, and I do want to say this because I think it's important to our community. Every family has the right to choose the best environment for their child. And that I would do it, every mom and dad would do it. What I think is unfair is that the taxpayers need to pay for that tuition. And so if a family decides to go to a private charter school, fine. I totally respect that. But as a taxpayer in Plain, I did not vote to send dollars to those schools for those tuition. And the voucher amounts continue to rise. And so, what are you going to do? And if it goes out of your school district, you have to make reductions. So what is the purpose in Columbus? I can't speak for them, but as superintendent, what I've seen over 30 years is to continue to reduce the offerings and opportunities in public schools for all kids, and to create another system where some can go. And I think that's bad. Are you required to provide transportation? Yeah. I mean, I think that's another thing that some people are like, what? Yeah. Yeah, we bus to, we have, I think, over 20 schools that we bus to in addition to ours. And so we bus charters, privates. We're mandated by the state to do that. We don't receive extra funding, to do that. And here's the other thing, Pam. When a school says our dismissal time is going to be 4:30, let's just use that as an example, then we have to fit into that. We have to make sure we have staff, we have buses, and if that costs more money, it costs more money. And the other thing we have to do is we have to send staff to those schools, our own staff, to educate those kids. Let's say there's a concern with reading or math, and we have to send staff there to educate them. So we hire those staff, and we then send them to those schools. So we are educating and transporting every day. Wow. So we see, you say worst case scenario comes and you lose the money. What kind of things are we seeing that are going to be affected by all of that? When it comes to programs and things. Sure. Well, we're very fortunate. I mean, we have, our class sizes, are relatively good right now. Of course, they're increasing, because you have less people. I think that's the biggest thing that'll happen. I think retaining staff will be another issue because, if you can't hire people, then your attraction for people to come work for you is going to be less. So again, it goes back to the community and making the community viable. Programming, whether it be Career Tech, International Baccalaureate, we have AP, we have honors, we have all sorts of arts classes. I mean, our kids in Plain can start dance, drama, music, and specialize in that starting in grade 5. Those things will have to be looked at. And we are known in Plain as a wonderful art school, as we are academics and athletics. And so if you don't have those opportunities, then families will not want to move into your school district. And so when you go back to what's the reason in Columbus, I don't know. None of this makes sense to me, because why wouldn't you want all schools, public and private, to be successful?
Yeah.
And find a way to fund that to where all communities are moving forward. Because in Ohio, you continue to hear, we're doing so well in Ohio and all these things, allegedly, but yet we're tearing down public education. And we have become the villains. And, I hear all the time, we're doing all these things, whether it be gender or our books or all this stuff. And it's just not true. But we continue to use this narrative, and it's hurting our communities. And I think that's what people need to understand. My teachers, they're focused on the kids, teaching them reading, math, and we don't have time for this other stuff, and nor should we, to be honest. Yeah. Let's teach the kids and educate them. But as far as what's going to go away, we have school resource officers, we have clinical counselors from CNA, we have 8 to 11 food sites this summer. We're going to feed our kids all summer. And, that stuff's going to go away.
All right.
So we'll see.
Next Tuesday, a week from today,
yes,
is the Rally for Education. City of Canton holding that at the Civic Center. You'll be there, I assume.
Yes, I will.
And I know there's superintendents from all across Stark County, yep, and some lawmakers, everybody kind of coming together to see what we can accomplish. So,
yeah, it's going to be a good night. And I think my message would be just come in here. Mm-hmm. Okay, we're not going to go there and complain and be victims. Here's what's going on. Here are the impacts. And everybody's educated to make their own decisions. And everybody will have an opinion. I understand that. But come and hear what's going on. And then from there, ask questions of your local elected officials. And I would be happy to talk to anyone as well. And looking forward to next Tuesday night.
All right. Well, we appreciate you coming in today. Thanks
Appreciate
so much.
it.
Canton's Morning News with Pam Cook.